Picture this: the faint hum of a lawnmower slicing through the stillness of a Saturday afternoon. A sound so familiar it's almost a lullaby in our little corner of the world. I'm Mary, 42 years old, standing at my kitchen window with a half-peeled potato in one hand, watching the world go by in slow motion. My life, if you could sketch it out, would be a series of soft, predictable lines, nothing jagged, nothing out of place. I've lived in this suburban bubble for over a decade, a small neighborhood where every face has a name, and every name comes with a story. Our street is the kind where folks wave as they pass by, where you can borrow a cup of sugar without a second thought. It's safe. It's home. I've been married to Harry for 18 years now. He's 45, a quiet man with a heart bigger than he knows what to do with, though you'd have to dig a little to see it. He's not one for grand gestures or long conversations, but his kindness shows in the small things, how he always makes sure my car's tank is full or slips an extra blanket over me when I fall asleep on the couch. His real love, though, is video games. It's like they're a language he speaks fluently when words fail him. Most evenings you'll find him parked in our living room, controller in hand, the glow of the TV screen casting shadows across his focused face. His eyes narrow with intensity, lips twitching into a rare smile when he nails a tough level. I'm usually nearby, folding laundry or flipping through a novel, the soundtrack of his virtual battles filling the space between us. It's our rhythm, and I've grown to find comfort in it. Our house is modest, tucked between two others just like it, with a patchy lawn and a mailbox that leans slightly to the left. The living room is the heart of it all, a cozy mess of familiarity. There's a worn-out couch, its gray fabric fraying at the edges from years of us sinking into it. The coffee table in front is a battlefield of its own. Empty soda cans, a stray bag of chips, and a couple of Harry's game manuals scattered across the scratched wood. The TV, a hulking thing we splurged on a few years back, dominates the wall, its screen a portal to whatever world Harry's lost in. The curtains are usually half-drawn, letting in just enough light to remind us it's still daytime, though Harry barely notices. It's a space that feels lived in, a snapshot of our quiet, unremarkable life. Next door, there's Ethan. He's 22, fresh out of college, and moved into the old Miller place a few months ago. He's a tall kid, all lanky limbs and messy brown hair that always looks like he just rolled out of bed. There's an awkward charm to him, the kind that makes you want to root for him even when he stumbles over his words or trips over his own feet. I remember the first time I met Ethan, how he fumbled with a box of moving supplies and nearly dropped it right on our front lawn, grinning sheepishly as he apologized. Since then, he's become a regular around here, especially on weekends when Harry invites him over for gaming sessions. It's nice to see Harry with a buddy, someone who gets his obsession with virtual worlds, and honestly, I don't mind the company either. It breaks up the monotony of our usual routine. That particular Saturday started like any other, with the sun spilling through the kitchen window and the distant buzz of that lawnmower still humming in the background. I was halfway through prepping lunch when I heard the doorbell chime, followed by Harry's eager footsteps thudding toward the front door. His voice carried through the house, bright and animated in a way that always makes me smile. "Ethan, man, you're gonna love this. I've been hyping this game for weeks, and it's finally time to crush it together." I could hear Ethan's low chuckle in response, a little shy but genuine, as their voices faded into the living room. Soon enough, the familiar sounds of their laughter and playful trash talk drifted back to me while I stood at the counter, slicing bread for sandwiches. There was something so warm about it, hearing Harry so full of life, bantering with Ethan over who was going to dominate their next match. It made the house feel fuller, like we weren't just two people rattling around in our quiet little space. I decided to put together a tray for them. Nothing fancy, just some ham and cheese sandwiches, a bowl of salty chips, and a couple of cold sodas straight from the fridge. As I arranged everything, I caught myself humming under my breath, feeling this quiet contentment settle over me. It's the little things, you know? Seeing Harry happy, having a friend over, just living in the moment. Balancing the tray in my hands, I made my way to the living room, the sounds of their game growing louder with every step. Explosions boomed from the TV, punctuated by the rapid click, click, click of their controllers as they mashed buttons with fierce determination. The air was thick with the scent of chips and the faint metallic tang of soda cans already popped open on the coffee table. I stepped into the room, careful not to trip over the tangle of cords snaking across the floor, and set the tray down on the cluttered table. "Thought you boys might be hungry?" I said with a small smile, straightening up. That's when I noticed Ethan's eyes on me. I was just wearing a plain blouse and jeans, nothing special, nothing meant to draw attention. But as I leaned over to adjust the tray, his gaze lingered. It wasn't blatant or rude, just intense. Curious, maybe. Like he was seeing something he hadn't noticed before. My cheeks warmed a little, and I quickly tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, trying to play it off. After setting the tray down and feeling Ethan's lingering gaze, I mumbled something about needing to grab more napkins and slipped back into the kitchen, my mind buzzing. I stood there at the sink, gripping the edge of the counter, trying to shake off the odd flutter in my chest. It was nothing, I told myself. Just a fleeting moment. But before I could fully convince myself, I heard the soft shuffle of footsteps behind me. I turned to see Harry standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable, a stark contrast to the animated excitement he'd shown just minutes ago in the living room. He glanced over his shoulder, making sure Ethan was still out of earshot, then stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, almost conspiratorial whisper that sent a shiver down my spine. "Mary, I've noticed something," he began, his words slow and deliberate, like he was choosing each one with care. "The way Ethan looks at you, it's not just friendly. There's something there, something hungry in his eyes. And I'm not mad about it. In fact, I'm intrigued." My breath caught in my throat as he paused, letting the weight of his words settle over me like a heavy fog. His eyes locked onto mine, intense and unyielding, as he continued in that same hushed tone. "I want you to take the initiative. Flirt with him a little. See how far it can go. I'll be watching, seeing how it all plays out." I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. My mind raced, trying to process what he was asking. Harry, my Harry, the man I'd built a life with, was suggesting something so far outside the boundaries of everything I knew about us. I opened my mouth to protest, to ask if he was serious, but no words came. Instead, I just stared at him, my thoughts a tangled mess of confusion, curiosity, and, though I hated to admit it, a strange, forbidden thrill that flickered somewhere deep inside me. I've always been loyal to Harry. 18 years of marriage, through every up and down, I've never once strayed, never even thought about it. This felt wrong on so many levels, like a betrayal of everything we stood for. And yet, there was something in the way he looked at me, a spark of excitement in his usually reserved demeanor that made me wonder. What if I did this? What if I played along, just to see? Was it the taboo of it all that stirred something in me? Or was it the idea of being seen, desired, in a way I hadn't felt in years? I hated myself for even considering it, but I couldn't deny the pull, the way my pulse quickened at the thought. After a long, heavy silence, I gave a small, hesitant nod, more out of curiosity than conviction. "Okay," I whispered, barely audible, as if saying it louder would make it too real. Harry's lips curled into a faint, almost approving smile, and he gave a subtle nod back before turning to head into the living room. I followed a moment later, my legs feeling like jelly, my mind screaming at me to stop, to turn back, but my feet kept moving. We returned to the living room, the sounds of the game still blaring from the TV, Ethan hunched over his controller, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and sat down on the couch between them, the worn fabric sinking under my weight. I picked up a spare controller from the coffee table, pretending to join their game, though my hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold it. The air felt thick, charged with a tension I couldn't name, as I shifted slightly closer to Ethan. Then, with a courage I didn't know I had, I let my free hand rest lightly on his stomach, just above the waistband of his jeans. I could feel the warmth of his skin through the thin fabric of his t-shirt, the subtle rise and fall of his breath hitching under my touch. I turned my head to look at him, catching his eyes, wide with confusion and a flicker of something else, uncertainty, maybe, or a spark of anticipation. My heart was hammering so loud, I was sure they could both hear it over the chaos of the game on the TV. Time seemed to stretch, each second dragging on as I leaned in just a fraction closer, my breath shallow, my mind a whirlwind of doubt and daring. It wasn't about grand gestures or explicit moves. It was the quiet intensity of crossing a boundary I never thought I'd approach. A brush of contact, a shared look that lingered too long, small actions that felt monumental in their weight. And in that moment, I felt like I was floating outside myself, watching this unfold as if it were someone else's life. The air around us seemed to hum with a surreal haze, like I was caught in a dream I couldn't wake from. I was hyper-aware of every detail, the scratch of the couch fabric under me, the faint scent of Ethan's cologne, the way the light from the TV flickered across the room. But most of all, I felt Harry's gaze boring into us from the other side of the couch. He hadn't said a word, hadn't moved an inch, but his silence was louder than any explosion from the game. It pressed down on me, heavy and unyielding, making my skin prickle with a mix of dread and exhilaration. I couldn't bring myself to look at him, not yet. I was too afraid of what I'd see in his eyes. Judgment, excitement, or something I couldn't even name. When it was over, when that fleeting, charged moment passed, the room seemed to snap back into focus. But none of us were the same. Ethan pulled away first, his face flushed a deep crimson, his hands fumbling with the controller as if it could anchor him back to reality. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I don't know what just happened, he stammered, his voice cracking as he avoided looking at me or Harry. His awkwardness was almost painful to watch, his long fingers rubbing the back of his neck as he stared at the floor, clearly wishing he could disappear. I felt a pang of guilt twist in my chest, seeing him so rattled, knowing I'd been the one to push us into this uncharted territory. And then there was Harry. I finally dared to glance at him, expecting anger or unease, but instead, I saw something else entirely. His expression was almost thrilled. A glint of fascination danced in his eyes as he leaned back against the couch, one arm draped casually over the armrest. Breaking the suffocating silence, he spoke, his tone so nonchalant it threw me off balance. "Well, that was interesting, wasn't it?" he said, as if we'd just finished a particularly tricky level of his game rather than shattered some unspoken rule. His casualness was jarring, like he was commenting on the weather, and it left me reeling even more than before. How could he be so calm when my insides were a storm of conflicting emotions? I didn't know how to respond, didn't trust my voice not to betray the chaos in my head. Guilt gnawed at me, sharp and insistent, for stepping over a line I'd never imagined crossing. But beneath that, there was confusion. Why wasn't I as horrified as I thought I should be? And if I'm honest, there was a strange sense of liberation too, like I'd shed a layer of myself I didn't even know I was wearing. It was as if, for the first time in years, I'd done something purely for the thrill of it, consequences be damned. But what did that say about me? About us? We tried to return to some semblance of normalcy after that, though it felt like a clumsy charade. Ethan mumbled something about needing to head home soon, his voice still shaky as he busied himself with gathering his things, avoiding eye contact at all costs. I stood up, my legs unsteady, and started clearing the snack tray from the coffee table, focusing on the mundane task as if it could erase what had just happened. My hands shook as I stacked the empty soda cans, the clink of aluminum sounding louder than it should have in the tense silence that lingered. That first encounter with Ethan left an indelible mark, a crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew about myself and my marriage. But what I didn't expect was how it would grow, how it would spiral into something none of us could fully predict or control. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a regular weekend guest at our house. At first, I thought it might just fade away, that we'd all silently agree to pretend that moment on the couch never happened. But Harry had other ideas. Each visit, he seemed to push the boundaries further, orchestrating scenarios that felt like stepping into a strange, uncharted game where he held all the rules. It started small, almost playful, but with an undercurrent I couldn't ignore. Harry would suggest little role-playing games, assigning us characters as if we were actors in some bizarre private theater. The living room, once just a space for lazy evenings and video game marathons, transformed into a stage for these adult games. The TV stayed off, the console forgotten, gathering dust on the shelf. Instead, Harry's voice became the controller, directing us with a calm authority that both unnerved and intrigued me. One Saturday, he decided we'd play out a scene where Ethan was a charming stranger at a bar, and I was supposed to flirt with him while Harry watched from the sidelines as the bartender, offering sly commentary. The coffee table became the bar counter, and I found myself laughing nervously as I leaned in, pretending to order a drink, my words stumbling over the absurdity of it all. Ethan played along, his shy grin breaking through the awkwardness, though I could see his hands trembling slightly as he held an imaginary glass. Each week, the scenarios grew bolder, the lines between fantasy and reality blurring, until I wasn't sure where one ended and the other began. Harry set challenges, little dares that pushed us out of our comfort zones. One time, he had us act out a scene where Ethan was a repairman fixing something in the house, and I was supposed to distract him with subtle touches and suggestive banter. I remember standing close to Ethan near the couch, my hand brushing against his arm as I pointed to an imaginary broken lamp, my voice low and teasing as per Harry's instructions. The air was thick with unspoken tension, every word and gesture feeling heavier than it should. Harry sat back in his armchair, his eyes gleaming with a mix of jealousy and satisfaction, like he was both reveling in the game and testing its limits. I could feel his gaze on us, sharp and unrelenting, and it sent a shiver down my spine every time I caught that look. My emotions were a tangled mess through all of this. There was the thrill of the forbidden, a rush I couldn't deny every time I played along with Harry's ideas. It was like stepping into a version of myself I didn't recognize, someone daring and unafraid, someone who could flirt and tease without a second thought. But then came the guilt, crashing over me in waves when I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling while Harry slept beside me. I'd think about the vows we made all those years ago, the promises of loyalty and trust, and wonder if I was betraying them in ways I couldn't fully grasp. How could I justify this, even if Harry was the one pushing for it? And yet, there was something else growing beneath all that, a bond with Ethan that I hadn't anticipated. He was more than just a player in Harry's games. He was kind, thoughtful in his quiet way, and every shared glance or hesitant smile made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. I started noticing the little things about Ethan during these orchestrated moments. The way his voice softened when he spoke to me, even in character, as if he was trying to make sure I was okay with it all. The way his hands would fidget, betraying his nerves, every time Harry announced a new game. I could see he was overwhelmed, caught in this dynamic just as much as I was. But there was also a pull, a draw that kept him coming back each weekend. It mirrored something in me, that strange, unspoken need to keep exploring this dangerous edge we'd stumbled upon. Months have passed since that first charged moment on the couch, and I'm still trying to piece together what it all means. I sit here now, in the quiet of our living room, the same worn-out couch beneath me, and I can't help but reflect on how much has changed and how much hasn't. Those weekend visits with Ethan still happen, like clockwork, every Saturday afternoon. The doorbell chimes, and there he is, with that same shy grin and messy hair, carrying a six-pack or a bag of chips as an excuse to come over. We still play the games, those carefully constructed scenarios that Harry dreams up, but there's a new layer to it all now. An unspoken understanding hangs between us, a silent agreement that we're treading on fragile ground. We're more cautious, more aware of the lines we've crossed and the ones we're careful not to step over again. The laughter is still there, the playful banter, but it's tinged with a weight we can't ignore. We've seen too much of each other, in ways that go beyond the surface, and there's no going back to the innocence of those early gaming sessions. I remember a moment from a few months ago that sticks with me, a snapshot of how we've settled into this odd, uneasy balance. It was a chilly autumn evening, the kind where the air smells like fallen leaves and the light fades early. We just finished one of Harry's scenarios, something lighthearted this time. A pretend dinner party where we each played exaggerated versions of ourselves. The tension had eased for once, and after it was over, the three of us collapsed onto the couch, side by side, our shoulders brushing in the cramped space. The TV was off, the room dim with just the glow of a single lamp in the corner casting soft shadows across the walls. We were all a little out of breath from laughing at some silly joke Ethan had made about his terrible cooking skills in real life. It was such a mundane topic, so far removed from the charged games we usually played, that it felt almost surreal to just sit there, chuckling together like old friends. Harry's deep, rare laugh rumbled beside me, and Ethan's quieter, nervous giggle followed, his hand brushing mine accidentally as he shifted. For a fleeting second, it felt normal, like we were just three people sharing a moment, no hidden agendas, no undercurrents. But then I caught Harry's eye, and there it was, that glint, that reminder of the dynamic we've woven. Even in that quiet, seemingly innocent moment, the air hummed with something unspoken, a thread of tension that never fully unravels. As I think back on it, I realize how much this whole experience has reshaped me, reshaped us. My feelings for Ethan haven't faded, though I've buried them deep, locked them away in a corner of my heart I don't dare visit too often. Every time I see him, every time our eyes meet for just a second too long, I feel that pang, that pull I can't shake. It's a secret I carry, heavy and silent, one I'll never speak aloud, not to Harry, not to Ethan, not even to myself in the quiet of the night. And my relationship with Harry? It's evolved in ways I never expected. There's an openness between us now, a willingness to explore parts of ourselves we kept hidden for so long. But with that openness comes fragility, like we've stretched the fabric of our marriage so thin that one wrong move could tear it apart. We talk more, yes, but there are things we don't say, questions we don't ask, like whether this game we've started is strengthening us or slowly unraveling everything we've built over 18 years. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the power of fantasy, how it can be both a liberation and a cage. It's freed something in me, a part of myself I didn't know existed. A woman who craves excitement, who isn't afraid to test boundaries. But it's also trapped me in a cycle of longing and guilt. a loop of what-ifs and should-haves that plays in my mind like a haunting melody, reminding me that the line between reality and fantasy is both a thrilling escape and a perilous trap. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.